Hi everyone. In this session, we'll discuss about pancreas, which is a part of endocrine system. Already we have dealt regarding various endocrine glands like pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, and adrenal. Now we are going to discuss about pancreas. And you know very well, pancreas is a mixocrine gland. It acts as both exocrine as well as endocrine. And pancreas is a pinkish leaf-like structure located at the junction of duodenum and the stomach. Below the stomach, at the base of the stomach, at the junction of duodenum, it is located, and it opens into duodenum with the help of a duct called pancreatic duct. But this pancreatic duct is meant for giving out the secretions from exocrine part of the pancreas, whereas endocrine part of the pancreas secretes hormones. So there are two parts here. Pancreas acts as a mixocrine gland, or it's a heterocrine gland. Mixocrine gland because it functions both as exocrine as well as endocrine. The acinar cells of pancreas, they act as exocrine nature, and the islets of Langerhans located within the interstitial tissue of the pancreas act as endocrine part. So here we'll discuss only about the endocrine part. Exocrine part is nothing but which contain acinar cells. They produce different types of enzymes necessary for the process of digestion of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And these secretions will be secreted into the duodenum directly through a duct called pancreatic duct. But whereas the endocrine region is ductless, so the secretions are secreted directly into the blood. So here the endocrine nature of pancreas is called as islets of Langerhans. The islets of Langerhans contain three different types of cells mostly. Maximum amount of cells are these. One is alpha cells, beta cells, and delta cells. Other than that, there are also epsilon cells and pp cells. So those cells also produce some sort of hormone, but in lesser quantity. So here the maximum amount of cells here in the islets of Langerhans are nothing but delta cells, alpha cells, and beta cells. So here you can see the diagram of pancreas. Pancreas is a leaf-like structure located below the or at the base of the stomach, opens into duodenum. So this leaf-like structure having head, neck, and a tail. The tail portion maximum contains more amount of islets of Langerhans. Islets of Langerhans are scattered here and there. In this diagram, you can see it clearly. This is pancreas. Pancreas having, you see here, these are acinar cells. So these acinar cells, they are part of exocrine nature. So we no need to bother about them. We need to look into the endocrine part of the pancreas. These are the endocrine part of the pancreas scattered here and there. And most of the endocrine part is found in this particular region of the pancreas. And they have the endocrine part of the pancreas, we call together, the cells together are called as islets of Langerhans. So there are different types of cells here. One is alpha cells, beta cells, delta cells, pp cells, and epsilon cells. Alpha cells produce glucagon, beta cells produce insulin, and delta cells produce somatostatin, and pp cells, that is they produce pancreatic polypeptide as a which is a hormone, and epsilon cells or E cells produce ghrelin, which is another hormone. So these are the different types of cells present within the interstitial region, or what we call islets of Langerhans, located within the pancreas. And these islets of Langerhans, they play a very important role in controlling mostly the carbohydrate metabolism or the glucose content in our body. The hormone produced from pancreas helps in maintaining a balance in the glucose content in our body or in our cells or in our blood. So first we'll see about different types of these hormones. So here we can see here alpha cells. So alpha cells are 25% of these cells are nothing but alpha cells, and they produce the hormone called glucagon, as I told. And there are almost 1 or 2 millions of islets, 1 to 2 million islets in the pancreas. And beta cells, they constitute 60%. That means most of the pancreas, the most number of cells in the pancreas are nothing but beta cells, which produce the hormone called insulin. Delta cells, 10%, they produce a hormone called somatostatin. Next, pp cells and E cells, they constitute only 5%, and pp cells produce pancreatic polypeptide, and E cells produce ghrelin. And we'll see one by one what these hormones do in our body. So these hormones, the glucagon and insulin, they act antagonistic to each other. One is meant for increasing the glucose levels, other is meant for decreasing the glucose levels. Whereas somatostatin is nothing but meant for inhibiting the secretions of glucagon and insulin. And pancreatic polypeptide also act in the same manner, and they're also helpful in increasing the appetite. Ghrelin also increases appetite. It is called hunger hormone because it is helpful for producing hunger in our body when our glucose content decrease. Now we'll see in detail. The first one is glucagon. Glucagon is a peptide hormone and is known as hyperglycemic factor or hyperglycemic hormone. It is called hyperglycemic hormone because it increases blood glucose level by converting glycogen into glucose in liver. It doesn't go till muscles. It is meant for only break down the glycogen which is stored in the liver into glucose. Mostly this process occurs when our blood glucose levels decrease. And blood glucose levels decrease when we fast, when we are doing any fasting or not having proper food or something, then the glucose levels will decrease. When glucose levels decrease, the feedback information goes to the brain, and then from brain to the pancreas. Immediately the glucagon will be produced, and that glucagon will convert the glycogen stored in our body into glucose. Since the hormone is secreted into hepatic portal vein, it reaches the liver first and produces its effect in the liver only. It is destroyed in the liver after converting glycogen to glucose and cannot reach the muscle glycogen. That means it will not convert the muscle glycogen, but it will convert only the glycogen found in the liver. There itself it gets breakdown, and it is also helpful in mobilization of the stored fat. If there is any stored fat, the stored fat will be also getting mobilized, and it will not make it to accumulate in one particular area. And during severe conditions, the fat can also be converted into glucose. That is about glucagon. So glucagon is nothing but what? Hyperglycemic hormone meant for converting glycogen into glucose. That is glycogenolysis. It is meant for the process called glycogenolysis, means breakdown of glycogen into glucose, that too in the liver itself. Next comes the insulin, the main hormone. And you know about insulin. Insulin is nothing but the main factor. Nowadays, most of the people are suffering with the disease called diabetes, and that diabetes is due to the deficiency of the hormone insulin. So what is the function of insulin? Insulin is nothing but a protein hormone made up of 51 amino acids contained in 2 polypeptide chains. The primary function of insulin is to regulate the blood glucose levels. Hence it is also called hypoglycemic factor, because if glucose levels increase in our body, then it is meant for decreasing, or it is called as anti-diabetic factor. And what are the functions here? Insulin promotes formation of glycogen from glucose in liver and muscle. So it can go till muscle also. Whereas glucagon, if you take, glucagon does not reach till muscles, but in the liver itself it break down. But whereas in case of insulin, insulin can reach liver as well as in the muscle, and there it helps in the formation of glycogen from the excess glucose present there. And it reduces the production of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources such as proteins and fat. That means it inhibits gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is nothing but formation of glucose from proteins and fats. That process will be inhibited by the hormone insulin, and it increases membrane permeability and helps transport of glucose into the cells. That means each and every cell of our body will have receptors, and we call them as insulin binding receptors. So this insulin hormone will go and bind to those receptors, making our cell membrane permeable for the glucose to enter. If glucose will enter, then only the process of oxidation takes place in the cell. So that is possible only when insulin tells our cells to take glucose. That is the reason the person who have diabetes, even though they consume food or even though they take more glucose also, the chances of entry of glucose into the cells is inhibited. Why? Because insulin production is there. The insulin production, which will be low there, what it will do, it will not go and bind to the receptors. As it is not going and binding to the receptors, there is no chance of making the cells permeable to the glucose. That's the reason the glucose content increase in the body. So what it do, it increases the membrane permeability and helps to transport of glucose into the cells. And it accelerates phosphorylation of glucose into glucose 6-phosphate and enters the respiratory cycle, that is Krebs cycle and glycolysis. It prevents breakdown of fats, whereas glucagon helps in mobilization of fats and formation of toxic ketone bodies. It stimulates protein synthesis and overall growth of the organism. Insulin-like growth factors, we generally call insulin-like growth factors, in combination with thyroxine and growth hormone, they help in overall growth of the organism. So these are the main functions of insulin. So insulin is nothing but a protein hormone made up of 51 amino acids consisting of 2 polypeptide chains. It's called hypoglycemic hormone because it reduces the glucose levels in our body by converting glycogen into glucose. And it also prevents gluconeogenesis. It increases membrane permeability for glucose. It converts, it helps in phosphorylation of glucose into glucose 6-phosphate so that it can enter into glycolysis so that respiratory cycle can be started. And it prevents breakdown of fats, prevents formation of ketone bodies, stimulates protein synthesis and helps in the overall growth of the organism. Next comes the somatostatin. Somatostatin is a small molecule of 14 amino acids containing polypeptide chain. So it's also a peptide hormone and is known as somatostatin. This hormone has very short lifespan, that is destroys within 3 minutes after its secretion. It is secreted when increased food intake stimulates the secretion of somatostatin. If we take more food, then somatostatin will be produced, inhibits the secretion of insulin and glucagon. That is the function. Suppose if glucose levels are in balanced condition, then there is no need of insulin or no need of glucagon to be secreted. So that is the reason it will inhibit the secretion of insulin and glucagon. Not only that, decrease motility of stomach and duodenum and even gallbladder. So constriction of these stomach, duodenum and gallbladder are also inhibited by somatostatin. Decrease secretion and absorption of gastrointestinal tract. That means it also inhibits the process of digestion. So it is mostly meant for inhibiting the hormones or enzymes acting in the intestine as well as the hormones like insulin and glucagon. And its span is very less. It survives only for 3 minutes. After that, it gets destroyed. Next comes pancreatic polypeptide. It is thought to play a very important role in appetite, increasing the appetite, making us feel hungry, as well as in regulation of pancreatic exocrine and endocrine secretions. That means it controls both secretion of hormones as well as secretion of enzymes by pancreas. And pancreatic polypeptide released following a meal may reduce further food consumption. However, it is also released in response to fasting. Suppose if we take after meal also it reduces, and if you are fasting also it is released. However, it is also released in response to fasting and released following a meal. After eating it will be released, or if you are not eating also it will be released, so that it can regulate the release of hormones, either insulin or glucagon. Or suppose if you are fasting, it will stimulate the cells to produce glucagon so that the stored glycogen can be converted into glucose. Or if you are having excess meal, then also it will be secreted so that the secretions of insulin and glucagon can be stopped, or secretion of insulin can be increased. Basing on the feedback mechanism or basing on the glucose levels in your body, the pancreatic polypeptide is produced. And ghrelin is also synthesized from the stomach wall, from the duodenal wall, as well as from the intestinal wall. And it is also secreted in small amounts from pancreatic cells, from the E cells or epsilon cells. And it is termed the hunger hormone because it stimulates the appetite, increases food intake, and promotes fat storage. It helps in fat storage and increases the hunger. So we call it as hunger hormone. So what does it do? This hormone will stimulate the brain cells, that if there is decrease in glucose content, and tells our body to we feel like hungry and then we eat. So it is mostly meant for increasing our appetite. So these are the different hormones produced by the pancreas, and the most important hormones are insulin and glucagon. Glucagon and insulin both are antagonistic to each other, and they are meant for maintaining the glucose balance in our body. So they are called as glycemic hormones. In the same way, somatostatin also is helpful because it inhibits the functioning of or secretions of insulin and glucagon. So here, mostly the pancreatic disorders, if you take, the disorders are mostly based on the production of the insulin. Based on the production of insulin, most of the people, they suffer with a disorder called as diabetes mellitus. The main disorder of pancreas is deficiency of insulin production, which leads to diabetes mellitus. Here you can see a normal pancreatic person. If a person is a normal, then as I told you, what does insulin do? Insulin will go and bind to a receptor called insulin receptor, making the cell permeable to take glucose. This is a normal condition where everything is normal. The production of insulin is also normal. Insulin will go and bind to the receptor and glucose will be taken, and that glucose will be utilized in the cells, and the levels of glucose will be maintained in the blood. Whereas in type 1, there are three different types of diabetes generally we see. One is called type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and gestational diabetes. During type 1 diabetes, it is also called insulin dependent diabetes or juvenile diabetes, generally seen at the lower ages. It's a genetical disorder. If there is any problem with the beta cells, decrease in the number of beta cells or destruction of beta cells, or if there is any mutation leading to not to form insulin, then what happens? Insulin production is completely stopped or insulin production is completely reduced. During that, as you can see the arrow mark here, the insulin is not produced at all. If insulin is not produced, there is no chance of going and binding to insulin receptors, and there is no uptake of glucose here. But what happens in type 2? Insulin production is there, but the insulin production is reduced. The number of beta cells are less and reduced. So this here, the problem here is the insulin which is produced is not sufficient to bind to the receptor. So the receptor becomes insulin resistant. As the receptor becomes insulin resistant, it will not make the cells to take glucose. So in these two cases, the glucose levels in our blood will increase. That is what called diabetes. Diabetes is nothing but increase in the levels of glucose in our blood. Normally, 90 milligrams of glucose should be there per 100 ml of blood. But if that quantity increases, then we call it as diabetic. Generally, more than 180 or more than 150 or more than 150, we call such persons as diabetic. So here there are three types. Type 1 is called insulin dependent because these people should by birth they have the problem of diabetes, or they have problem of this insulin deficiency in their body by birth. That's the reason we call them as juvenile diabetes, and they're completely dependent on insulin. That means these patients should be given insulin through injections. They should take injections, insulin injections, to maintain the levels of sugar in their body. That's the reason we call them as insulin dependent, because there is no insulin production here. In type 1 diabetes, there is no insulin production. As there is no insulin production from the pancreas, these people should be given insulin from outside. How they are given? They are given through injections. That's why we call them as insulin dependent diabetes. Type 1 is called insulin dependent diabetes, and it is also genetic. And type 1 is also autoimmune. It's also an autoimmune disorder. Whereas type 2 is called insulin independent. That means there is no requirement of giving insulin to these people. And mostly this is seen in the adults, those who cross 30 years or 40 years. At that age, these people, they suffer with type 2 diabetes due to obesity or due to hypertension. These are the main two reasons for getting type 2 diabetes. One is obesity, other one is hypertension or any cardiac problems. Then there is chance of getting type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes generally occurs after 40 years of age. And nowadays we see not only 40 years, but the people at the age of 30 years also are getting type 2 diabetes because of the lifestyle which we are leading nowadays, having junk food and all, increasing the obesity in children and obesity in teenage people. So nowadays, 20 years, after 20 years only, type 2 diabetes, chances of getting type 2 diabetes is more. And here, if they maintain the lifestyle in a proper way, and if they maintain a proper diet, then this type 2 diabetes can be treated. And there is no need to take insulin injections here. That's the reason we call them as insulin independent diabetes. Gestational diabetes means during pregnancy. Some of the women during pregnancy, they get diabetes, then such type of diabetes is called a gestational diabetes. And this is also like if any family history is having, any family history having gestational diabetes, then chances of having gestational diabetes is high. And during gestational diabetes, there is chances of juvenile diabetes to occur in the growing baby, and abortions may occur. So that is what happens during gestational. Obesity and hypertension also leads to gestational diabetes during pregnancy. So these are the three types. One is called type 1, type 2, and the other one is gestational diabetes. And type 1 is very rare, and most common is in type 2 diabetes or insulin independent diabetes. We'll see a flow chart here. So type 1 usually seen in young people, type 2 in older people, and gestational is first detected in pregnancy. During pregnancy it is detected. Generally it is not seen, but during pregnancy the woman can get diabetic. Then such type of diabetes is called as gestational diabetes. Short history, acute onset, sudden onset here, and you see it is insidious onset. Slowly the onset of type 2 occurs generally. Routine testing, we need to do routine testing to find out whether the particular woman is having diabetes or not. So when we do routine testing, then only we'll get to know that that particular woman is having diabetes. This is not due to overweight, but this is due to overweight. Type 2 is due to overweight, and gestational diabetes is also due to overweight. Generally, type 1 is genetically related. Mutation in the genes responsible for the production of insulin or beta cells destruction is the reason for type 1 diabetes, whereas type 2 and this gestational diabetes is because of overweight. Here insulin is completely deficient. Here insulin is resistant. Insulin is produced, but that insulin is not acting on the receptors found over our cells. That is the reason it is called insulin resistance. And here usually insulin resistance and as well as placental hormones are also responsible for gestational diabetes. Type 1 is very rare, type 2 is common, and gestational diabetes nowadays becoming more common because during pregnancy because of the lifestyle which we are leading nowadays. And another reason for gestational diabetes is also PCOD. That is PCOD is also one of the reasons for having diabetes during pregnancy. Polycystic ovarian disorder, nowadays it has become very common because of the lifestyle we are leading. And next here in type 1 they require insulin from diagnosis. From diagnosis we get to know that compulsory insulin should be given to these people to survive. And type 2, diet and lifestyle change can reverse it. If you maintain a proper diet and lifestyle, then type 2 diabetes can be cured. And then add oral medication may require insulin. The insulin may be oral medication. That means insulin can be taken through in the form of oral, not through injections. But here it is compulsory through injections. And here also diet and lifestyle plus medication to limit effects on the growing baby, compulsory it is. Often random, very rare. Strong family history. Suppose if your parents or if your grandparents are having diabetic, then their chances of getting diabetes is very high in type 2. Here also same, family history or the lifestyle which you lead, overweight, hypertension, all these are the reasons for gestational diabetes. So these are the causes or the reasons for getting type 1, type 2 and gestational diabetes. Now we'll see the symptoms. If you take type 1 diabetes symptoms, they feel extremely thirsty. You can see a picture here. These are the three things, 3 P's you should remember: polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia. Polyuria means frequent urination, polydipsia means feeling thirsty, polyphagia means feeling hungry. So these things generally happen. Here in these people, the glucose, if they have excess amount of glucose in the blood, the glucose is even seen in the urine, that is called glucosuria. Glucosuria is also one of the major symptoms in case of type 1 diabetes. So weight loss, fatigue, frequency of infection increases, rapid onset of this symptoms and all occur. Insulin dependent, they're completely insulin dependent. And familial tendency, that means if family is having, they also have peak incidence from 10 to 15 years. It's the getting type 1 diabetes will start from the age of 10 or 15 years. If the child is very obese, even though he is not having genetic history, genetically if he is not having by birth, there may be chances of getting a type 1 diabetes at the age of 10 to 15 Yes. And in some children, the type 1 diabetes is even seen from by birth. And extreme thirst, increased hunger, dry mouth, upset stomach and vomiting, frequent urination, unexplained weight loss, even though you are eating and feeling hungry. But what happens here, even though we eat, the glucose which is produced is not taken into the cells. If it is taken to the cells, then only the glucose will be utilized for the process of oxidation. That is not happening. That's the reason, even though we eat, we feel hungry. The patients who are diabetic, even though they eat in frequent meals, they feel hungry they feel hungry within few hours or within 1 or 2 hours, because the glucose is not going into the cells. That's the reason they should take insulin through injections, so that the glucose which they take can be which can go into the cells. Fatigue, feeling tired, the vision will be affected, blurry vision, heavy labored breathing will be very high, and frequent infections of the skin, urinary tract or vagina, crackiness and mood changes. The mood will be changing time to time. And bedwetting in children who's been dry at night is also one of the reasons for diabetes. So these are symptoms of diabetic type 1 diabetes, which is seen. These people are insulin dependent. Compulsory insulin injection should be given, because insulin production is completely deficient in these people, because beta cells may be either not formed properly, or the gene responsible for the formation of insulin may be mutated. So you should remember here polyuria, polydipsia and polyphasia. Other than this, if the glucose content is like more than 250 or something like more than 180 or 200 mg per 100 ml, then the excess glucose is even seen in the urine. So we call it as glucosuria. Next is, these are the symptoms of type 2 diabetes. As I told you, type 2 diabetes generally occurs if the man or woman is obese, overweight, and if he is having high BP or blood pressure. Almost same symptoms, but here um, the type 2 diabetes generally occurs at the age of after the age of 30 years or 40 years. And if you control your life cycle, and if you control your by diet and by doing exercise, the type 2 diabetes can be controlled. So what are the symptoms? Blurred vision, fungal infection, itching of skin and genitals, unexplained weight loss occurs, and numbness of hands and feet is the main symptom. If you see these symptoms, it's better go for testing of the blood glucose levels. And frequent urination is one more symptom. Constant hunger, slow healing of wounds. So if there is no proper intake of glucose by the cells, then the high glucose levels in our body will decrease the functioning of B cells and T cells. So that's the reason the wound healing process will also be reduced, or they heal very slowly. So that's the reason. These are the symptoms of type 2 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes can be seen in the people who are obese, and the type 2 diabetes can be controlled by doing exercises and taking proper diet. Next is gestational diabetes. This is uncontrolled gestational diabetes can lead to problems that affect both mother as well as the baby. What happens in premature birth? Early delivery occurs. Higher than normal weight at birth. They'll be at more weight. Increased risk for type 2 diabetes later in the life for the child or even for the woman. Low blood sugar, jaundice, stillbirth. These are the symptoms generally seen in the baby which is growing in the uterus. This is about gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes is also because of overweight. So if you control your weight and if you have a proper diet, gestational diabetes and type 2 diabetes can be treated to some extent. Whereas the type 1 diabetes compulsorily requires insulin injections as well as exercise and diet should be maintained. So these are the disorders which we see due to pancreatic hormones. And suppose if glucagon hormone is either increasing more, if glucagon hormone is increasing more, our blood glucose levels will be increasing. So that is called hyperglycemic condition occurs in our body. So we generally don't see the problem with glucagon. Mostly the problem, the pancreas disorder which we face is nothing but with the insulin. Deficiency of insulin is the main reason for it. And sometimes what happens, the persons who are diabetic, if they take insulin injections and the quantity of insulin, if it is more, there is chance of decrease of glucose at a stretch. Then it may lead to a shock called insulin shock, where brain cells can get attacked and they become unconscious. This is one of the symptom with the patients who are diabetic. So they should be very careful how much doses of insulin they are taking. So insulin doses is compulsory. If not, it may lead to insulin shock. So these are some of the disorders: type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes. I think you got it. Thank you.